What's up, Net Soldiers? I'm Ned Alliance. Here I am today to explain my thoughts on J.J. Abrams returning to the Star Wars franchise. But before we get into J.J. Abrams, I want to talk a little bit more about Colin Trevorrow. So for me, when I found out that Colin was actually going to be directing Episode 9, I got super excited because he's the dude who directed Jurassic World. And you can say what you want about the film, but I personally think it was a super entertaining film. It wasn't the best film in the world, but it definitely was not the worst. I mean, I'm serious. I looked through different forums, different comment sections, and then all I can see is when people actually complain about the film, the only thing they cannot complain about is that final fight scene. Oh man, the movie's trash. But that fight scene though. And it's true, I hear that all the time. It's definitely a very fun scene. But honestly, in my opinion, I think it was a very fun film. And like I mentioned, it wasn't the best film, but it definitely wasn't the worst film, but it is a very entertaining film. And although some may think differently from me, I definitely had fun with it. So when I heard that Colin Trevorrow was actually going to be directing Episode 9, I was like, oh yeah, here we go. Because personally, when J.J. Abrams made The Force Awakens, I actually left the theater going, it was alright. But then as time has gone on, I noticed this a lot from other people. You kind of see the similarities between A New Hope. And I've actually heard a bunch of people make like jokes like The Force Returns, or The Force Rebooted, or The Force Copied, and stuff like that. And you really start to see that as time goes on. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When it comes down to it, The Force Awakens doesn't really feel like its own Star Wars film. It feels more like J.J. Abrams' fan fiction of A New Hope. So on a side note, it does make me wonder, is Disney gonna go through this formulaic thing? So what I mean by this is when The Force Awakens came out, everyone was kind of like, yeah, it's a pretty good film. And then as time went on, we started going, wait, it's not that great of a film. It definitely could have been better. They definitely played it safe. And then you got a movie like Rogue One that comes out and everyone's like, it's a pretty good film. And now everyone's slowly starting to kind of turn that away and be like, you know what? That film definitely wasn't that great. The best part was the Darth Vader scene. I mean, let's be honest here. And of course, that's just what I've seen personally. But if you still like these films, that's good. That's fine. You can like them. That's perfectly okay. I'm just explaining what I've seen through my own personal experience surfing the interwebs, as the kids say nowadays. So apparently Disney was all set to have Colin come direct because of how good of a job he did with Jurassic World, and of course how much money Jurassic World made. Then there were some rumors online for why Colin actually got fired, or he left, or there was creative differences. There's a bunch of different stuff going into this, and it's definitely really interesting. So although we don't actually know the true reason why Colin left the project, the biggest speculated reason is because of how bad his book of Henry did. Now, I didn't see it, so I can't personally judge it, but I heard it's pretty bad. So that seems to be the general consensus of why he actually got fired. Now with Trevorrow out, a bunch of the fans started speculating who they want to see. And I was actually surprised because a bunch of people wanted Steven Spielberg. And I actually started thinking like, wow, Steven Spielberg didn't direct a Star Wars yet. That is weird. I think I'd like to see his take on the franchise, especially the ending of Episode 9. You know, the last chapter to this entire saga. Maybe he is the perfect person. But then, not even 48 hours later, they found a new director. And, as you guys know, it's J.J. Abrams. So the reason I believe that J.J. Abrams was chosen to take over Episode 9 is because he can deliver exactly what Disney wants. Now, to deliver what the fans want, that's completely different. And Disney is slowly starting to see how Star Wars fans like their Star Wars to be treated. Now, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. This is pretty much a warning to Disney. Here's the thing, guys, if you haven't realized it by now, you cannot treat Star Wars like any other franchise. Star Wars is a very delicate flower, and you guys are essentially pulling off the petals and making the fans very, very angry. You know, the Transformers franchise is cool, and it's gotten kind of worse as time has gone on, but people expect that from those movies. And you can say what you want about the Star Wars prequels. I think they're fine. A lot of people like to complain about them, but they're honestly not the worst things in the world. And some aspects of the prequels are actually better than The Force Awakens, but like I said, that's just my opinion. But no matter what, like I previously mentioned, you cannot treat Star Wars like any other franchise. It just does not work. And for The Force Awakens, it was definitely supposed to be a callback to the original franchise. And in the eyes of Disney and Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams did a 100% great job. But in the eyes of the fans, it just seemed like a copy. And although there were a few pretty big differences from the original trilogy to this film, there are just way too many different similarities to A New Hope. And guess what, Disney? The fans noticed. It might not have been right away, but we definitely figured it out soon enough. And the way that Episode 7 was actually treated more like a callback to A New Hope, a lot of people started to speculate perhaps Episode 8 will be treated more like a callback to The Empire Strikes Back. And although it's okay for Star Wars to have parallels, because Star Wars has always had parallels, the best example of this is probably when Anakin loses his arm and Luke loses his arm. You know, it's always been there. But there's a difference between drawing parallels and completely straight out copying something and then just changing a few different things. And that's just kind of what it seems like The Force Awakens was. So it scares some people coming forward in the future. So I guess the big question of this video is, am I excited for J.J. Abrams to be the director of Episode 9? Now, although I am let down that Colin Trevorrow isn't in the picture anymore, I do know that J.J. Abrams knows what he's doing. And he's actually one of the very few directors who actually listens to film criticisms. Now, when it comes to Star Wars, a lot of other stuff happens above his head that he has to just kind of do for them. Because when it comes to Kathleen Kennedy and her empire, I guess, we'll say that, it's either their way or the highway, if you know what I mean. They don't want directors who are gonna make their own creative vision. They want directors who are gonna make movies that are gonna make money. And directors like J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson, they know how to do that. So here's hoping that J.J. doesn't let Disney just walk all over him. And it's okay if Disney wants to put in their own input towards their own movie, because it is technically their own movie. But although it is still owned by them, it's not their movie. It's a Star Wars movie. It's the fans' movie, and you need to be able to deliver something like that. So as far as I'm concerned, I am excited to see JJ take on the role again. I do think that Disney and him have learned their lesson from last time, and they will deliver a quality film. And it better be the best darn film, because it is the end of the saga. And imagine if it's just the worst film. That's just gonna kill everybody's love for Star Wars. Now, of course, everyone's still gonna love Star Wars and watch every other movie that comes after that. But this is the end of a 9-part saga. You better give it good, JJ. Soon we're gonna be calling you JJ Binks. So, take that. Or Jar Jar Abrams. So that's my opinion of JJ returning to the Star Wars franchise. How do you guys feel? Let me know in the comments below. Please remember to like and subscribe for more Star Wars content. And until next time, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.